So we've explained a lot of how Weka works and inputs and different types of learners. Let's actually get some practical hands-on experience. So if you haven't downloaded the Weka program, there's some directions in that YouTube video how to do that. I've already got it downloaded here and started, so I'll assume at least you have that much done. And then so I will open the Explorer, and hopefully you can see that without any issue. And so we have our different tabs on the top here, and you should have some general sense of what those are because the YouTube video from the book's author actually and the Weka authors explain that. So the first thing we will do is we will open a file, and we have our different directories, and so by default I think most people will have this data folder. And then so let's choose our weather data, this little toy example that they use a lot, and the reason they use it is because it's a small example and it's something that most people can probably wrap their minds around pretty easily. You can, as a person, know that you look outside and you see whether it's sunny or raining and how humid it is and so forth, and just whether or not you're going to play a game or whether that baseball game is going to be canceled or a football game. So let's go ahead and open up weather.nominal, and as mentioned before, we have two types of inputs. We have numeric and nominal, and so this one is purely nominal. There's no numeric data in here. And let's open it. And so we can see it's read our .arf file, and it's taken all of our different attributes that we've set, and it knows what those are. And we're in the pre-process tab. We won't use that very much in the beginning of the course anyway, but if you watch the YouTube videos, you should have an idea what they are. So what we want to go to, and probably the easiest to understand, is the classifier. So you click the Classify tab, and then the reason that we'll switch tools later in the course, as I mentioned, is because Weka is mostly a research tool, and a lot of the new algorithms and research papers that people release, and they'll end up in Weka pretty quickly, and there's some other tools like MATLAB and R that you'll see pop up. And what people tend to do is, because the user interface of Weka can be a little difficult to use, they'll write tools based off of Weka that are a little bit easier to use. But since this is the original tool and this is where all this other stuff comes from, this is what we're going to use. So what we do is we click to choose the classifier, and so we've got our different types of classifiers. And what we'll be working with is trees at first, classifiers. And so we have J48. So we click that, and as you can see, it puts some stuff in here, and these are different parameters. So for any of you who are familiar with command line and are okay working with command line, you can actually take these parameters, and Weka is also available as a command line tool, and so you can feed these parameters to a command line tool if you need to write scripts, because some people will run through a bunch of different scenarios and they'll adjust these parameters, but we're not too worried about it right now. But one of the kind of funny things with this UI is to set the different options. So maybe some of you are used to, if you in your user interface, if you click the choose button, you could set a bunch of different parameters. But in this one, to set all the parameters, what you actually do is you click this line here. So not the choose button, but directly right here in this little box. So you left click that, and then you'll get all your different different options that you could set with this classifier. We'll just leave everything the default right now, so I'll click cancel. But just know that later, when we do start to choose some options, that's how you do it. And so as I explained earlier, we can have training sets and test sets. And so the third option is cross-validation. You can see tenfold cross-validation, and as I mentioned before, what it'll do is it'll split our data, and say we had 100 examples, 100 instances. It would shuffle it up and randomize it, and then it'll do 10 iterations, 10 folds, and every single time it'll do a 90%, 10% split. And so it'll take the first 90 and train on that and create a model, and then test it on that last 10, and then go through and keep on doing 90-10 splits, 90-10 splits, 90-10 splits, and testing and figuring out the best model for that data. So it's a really good way of testing a lot with a small amount of data. But if you're confused about that, go ahead and watch the previous videos, and I explain that in more detail. So this is our classifier. This is what we're going to classify on, and by default, it's the last value. So if you can see, here's all our attributes. It's the last one. You can see right here it says nom for nominal, and so to actually run it, we click start, and it ran it. And so it has a bunch of information, and so you can see here's our confusion matrix, and as I mentioned before, here's our true positives and our true negatives, and then these are the misses, and here's we'll get into this, but these are all kinds of metrics for determining how good our model is. So we've got our true positive rate, our false positive rate, something called precision and recall, which we'll get into later, our F measure, and rock area, which is basically an area under a curve. Sometimes people call it the rock characteristic, and we'll get into that, and then a bunch of statistics here about how well our model worked. But what's interesting here is our decision tree, and so let's go ahead and get a visualization of that. So we visualize the tree, and as I said, this is a research tool, so the tree is not the most visually appealing, but I accidentally minimized it. Let's see if we can make this bigger, and then we can fit to screen. So what happened is it made a tree, and then so this is our J48 algorithm, looked at all that data, and then it said, okay, that's historical data. If we want to feed in new data into the future, here's the tree you use. So if I had a new instance and I did not know if it was a play or not play, what I could do is, well, there's two ways. I could by hand feed in the values, and then I would say, okay, my outlook is sunny, and the humidity is high, so statistically what'll happen is that we don't want to play, so that'll be a no. If it's overcast, then we do want to play, which probably means that it's not sunny, so it's overcast, but if it's rainy but not windy, we'll play. If it's rainy but if it is rainy and it's windy, then we don't want to play. So depending on the game, I'm not sure what game they're speaking of, but this is our tree, and what we can do is we can set different options and run it again, and this is just kind of how the UI works. Every single time we run it, we get a new run, and it puts a little timestamp next to it. And as I said, you'll have to get used to using this user interface, so it's probably better to download the software as quickly as possible and get used to it. So that's our first example. Go ahead and try that on your own. So go ahead and open the weather nominal data and try to run a J48 classifier on it, and click start and try to view the tree and get used to doing that on your own. Look forward to more videos coming soon.